Čujemo se? Evo. Dobar dan i lijepi pozdrav svima. Vama ovdje novinarima prisutnima u Ministarstvu gospodarstva i održivog razvoja, ali i svima onima koji nas prate online. Rečeno mi je da je nekoliko stotina ljudi koji nas trenutno prate i vama dobrodošlica. Danas predstavljamo program LIFE u novoj financijskoj perspektivi 2021-2027. O tome će danas govoriti ovdje prisutni govornici. Kao domaćina predstavljam prvo ministra gospodarstva i održivog razvoja Tomislava Ćorića, potom gospođu Aleksandru Čilić, načelnicu Sektora za zaštitu okoliša u Fondu za zaštitu okoliša i energetsku učinkovitost. Zatim uvaženog gosta Ogniana Zlateva, voditelja Predstavništva Europske komisije u Republici Hrvatskoj, te online putem video veze s nama je i gospodin Angelo Salsi, direktor Odjela za Program LIFE u Europskoj izvršnoj agenciji za klimu, infrastrukturu i okoliš. I vama, gospodine Salsi, dobar dan. Za početak uvodnu riječ dajem ministru, izvolite.
Hvala vam lijepa, Nataša. I prije svega dozvolite da pozdravim sve nazočne, gospodina Salsija u Briselu i naravno gospodina Zlateva, kao i gospođu Čilić iz Fonda za zaštitu okoliša i energetsku učinkovitost. Dakle, doista je zadovoljstvo biti danas ovdje i sudjelovati na predstavljanju LIFE-a za razdoblje 2021-2027 godina. Područja koja su pokrivena LIFE programima, dakle područje okoliša, odnosno djelovanje u području klime, su područja koja proteklih godina u europskoj i hrvatskoj javnosti imaju sve više, odnosno zaslužuju sve više pozornosti, u konačnici u sve su većem fokusu, što je i opravdano s obzirom na klimatske promjene kojima smo pogođeni i činjenicu da je zaštita okoliša, odnosno prirode i bioraznolikosti, a isto tako i inzistiranje na kreiranju kružnog gospodarstva zapravo pretpostavljaju i povećanje kvalitete života ne samo u Hrvatskoj nego i u Europi i u svijetu. Upravo zbog toga program LIFE kao nadogradnja standardnim financijskim omotnicama Europske unije u ovom konkretnom slučaju fokusiran na ova dva područja i na podprograme koji su definirani, omogućava da svi zainteresirani dionici na području Europske unije, sve institucije koje imaju znanje, vještine u konačnici i nude nove metode i nova rješenja mogu sudjelovati i aplicirati u konačnici temeljem toga zaslužiti sredstva, odnosno dobiti sredstva kojima će unaprijediti upravo stanje u području okoliša, odnosno u području klimatskih promjena. Ono što veseli je činjenica da je Republika Hrvatska, odnosno da su naši dionici u proteklom razdoblju sudjelovali, odnosno sudjeluju jer program još nije gotov, u dva programa i na taj način omogućili iskorake i bili prepoznati na europskoj razini. To je nešto što nas u Ministarstvu gospodarstva i održivog razvoja silno veseli. Ono što veseli je činjenica da je u narednoj financijskoj perspektivi za programe, odnosno za aplikaciju u okviru programa LIFE predviđeno oko 5,5 milijardi eura. Značajan novac na razini cijele Europske unije. Mi u Ministarstvu gospodarstva i održivog razvoja, odnosno naši stručnjaci, kako u pojedinim upravama, tako u Zavodu za zaštitu okoliša i prirode, naravno sudjelovat će i veselimo se činjenici da ćemo biti u društvu najboljih iz područja koje smo spomenuli, a sve s ciljem da se u narednom razdoblju ponovno ode korak naprijed u izgradnji kapaciteta, širenju znanja, vještina, tehnika kojima ćemo se svi zajedno, ja bih rekao, poslužiti u borbi za plemenite ciljeve koji pred cijelom Europom i cijelim svijetom stoje. Riječ je o zaštiti bioraznolikosti s jedne strane, o prije svega kreiranju kružnog gospodarstva, kako na europskoj, tako i na svjetskoj razini. Riječ je o ublažavanju, odnosno o prilagodbi klimatskim promjenama i borbi protiv naravno daljnjeg zagađenja i u konačnici prilazu na čistu energiju koja nam je proteklih nekoliko godina posebice od objavljivanja Europskog zelenog plana u mjesecu prosincu 2019. godine postala zajednička agenda koja je u platformi svih naših planova i svih naših akcija. Drago mi je još jednom da sam danas ovdje i na ovaj način mogu i ja osobno doprinijeti promoviranju LIFE-a u hrvatskoj javnosti, ali i šire. Hvala vam lijepo.
Hvala vam, ministre. Gospodine Salsi, pozivam vas da nam se obratite s nekoliko riječi.
Thank you very much and good morning to everyone. I hear a slight echo. Is that okay? Yeah, that's okay. Then the first thing is good morning, Zagreb. And dear Minister, thank you for hosting me. And it's the first info day that we have on live. So we made it. Yesterday we published the call against all odds and against COVID. And you are the first country that enjoys a bit more information upfront and before any other country, even before the European Info Day, because we have not been able even technically to launch yet our general presentation on the new call. So I'm very happy and very proud also to serve you this first meal, and I hope you will like it. The LIFE program, as you said, has grown in importance and coverage, and I will later on in the presentation I will bring you through the various novelties in the program, but the most important thing is that LIFE is still around. We are entering into its 30 years of existence. And for human beings, 30 years of doing the same thing again and again, it's quite a result. We are not as long-lasting as a beer manufacturer in Germany or in other countries, but still, we are one of the oldest programs of the European Union, second only to Erasmus. And I think second only to Erasmus, most likely we are one of the most popular programs around the clock. The good side of the story for Croatia is that Croatia, after a bit of a rusty start with LIFE, which is nothing particular because every country has to do a bit of gym before entering into the logic of a program and being successful, has shown indicators that show that Croatia is on the right path. So I'm hoping that this path will continue in the years to come, and that we will see more and more proposals coming in and possibly more projects being financed from your country. We need every single country. This is not a program for 2 or 3, let's say, front runners. This is a program for the whole European Union. And sometimes we even go wider than the European Union and we spill over in the neighboring countries with actions here and there. But indeed, we are probably the best example in town when you talk about the Green Deal of what the Green Deal is. We are not the Green Deal. Let's be honest, we don't have neither the size nor the ambitions of the Green Deal. We cannot solve all the problems that the Green Deal identifies. But when it was time to give a certain visibility, or if you want, examples of what the Green Deal could be, a number of LIFE projects have been used to populate this sort of narrative. Why? Because LIFE has been the only program fully dedicated to environment and now to climate change. And the latest income is the clean energy transition from its very start. So well before anybody was talking about circular economy or Green Deal or any other definition that you might think of, we were already financing those kind of projects. And so it's nice to be now in a place where you feel fit for purpose. We have been always a very small little program, sometimes even seen as, okay, next round we can close LIFE because it's too small. And now instead we're growing. And the other good thing is that we have moved to a new agency now, the management of the LIFE program. This agency is called CINEA. For those who know more about executive agencies in Brussels, it was the old INEA agency. which used to manage the Connecting Europe facility, the digital infrastructures, and some of the Horizon programs. Now this CINEA agency is a bit sort of a Green Deal agency. So it's probably the greenest place in Brussels that you can find, and we feel pretty much at home. So I think all the elements are there: more money, more ambitions, more things to do, a Green Deal backing us up almost every day, and a new place where we feel fit. The only thing we need is countries like yours that will continue to chip in and invest. And I'm pretty sure that in the next 7 years, LIFE, if it was a successful program in the past 29 and some years, it will even be more successful. So I leave it to this, and later on we will get more into the details. Thanks.
Hvala vam, gospodine Salsi. Gospođo Čilić, izvolite.
Poštovane dame i gospodo, lijepi pozdrav i srdačan od mene i predstavnika Fonda za zaštitu okoliša. Fond je od samog početka jedan od partnera u provedbi LIFE programa kroz sufinanciranje nacionalne komponente projekata za koja su odobrena sredstva iz LIFE programa i koja doprinose održivom razvoju. Svakodnevno smo suočeni sa klimatskim izazovima, te smo generalno kao društvo postali itekako svjesni negativnih posljedica do kojih dolazi prekomjernim trošenjem prirodnih resursa te neodgovornim ponašanjem i nebrigom prema okolišu. Nažalost, takva praksa na globalnoj razini predugo traje, a posljedice su vidljive na svakom koraku. Posljednjih godinu dana u Hrvatskoj se dosta govorilo o izumiranju periske te naporima koja se ulažu kako bi ta životinjska vrsta uspjela preživjeti. Meni osobno periska je na neki način postala i personifikacija, koliko god to možda i kataklizmički zvučalo, ali borbe za opstanak. No to je samo jedna od mnogobrojnih životinjskih i biljnih vrsta u svijetu koje su zbog devastacije okoliša i prekomjernog onečišćenja ugrožene. I zato nam se upozorenja znanstvenika o opstojnosti ljudske vrste na zemlji više ne čini kao scenarij nekog futurističkog filma, nego realna zbilja koja zahtijeva hitnu reakciju i promjenu naših svakodnevnih navika i ponašanja. Europska komisija je lider u borbi protiv klimatskih promjena, a Hrvatska je aktivan sudionik i to ne samo zato što smo zelene politike implementirali u naše strateške i planske dokumente, nego zato što ozbiljno radimo i na provedbi konkretnih projekata u raznim segmentima održivog razvoja. Projekti koji se provode u okviru LIFE-a važan su dio svega toga i zato mi je zadovoljstvo da ćemo biti u prilici sudjelovati i u narednom 7-godišnjem razdoblju. Osobito mi je drago što LIFE projekti okupljaju široki krug dionika od tijela državne vlasti, znanstvenih institucija, privatnog sektora do organizacija civilnog društva. Referirajući se na dosadašnju uspješnu suradnju, fond je osigurao 14 milijuna kuna, odnosno nešto malo manje od 2 milijuna eura, za provedbu 7 projekata za koja su bila odobrena sredstva iz LIFE programa, a čija je ukupna vrijednost bila oko 100 milijuna kuna. Znači, to su ipak značajna sredstva koja su uložena u ove projekte. I u razdoblju od 2021. do 2027. godine fond će osigurati udio nacionalnog sufinanciranja te zajedno sa Ministarstvom gospodarstva i održivog razvoja pružiti punu podršku svim budućim korisnicima iz LIFE programa. Hvala na pažnji.
Hvala vam, gospođo Čilić. Gospodine Zlatev, izvolite.
Hvala lijepa. Poštovani ministre, poštovana gospođo Čilić, dear Angelo, poštovani uzvanici, zadovoljstvo mi je da mogu se danas vama obratiti u ime Europske komisije u Hrvatskoj. Moj govor sam pripremio na engleskom, pa ću sad prebaciti na engleskom. It's really great to finally be able to attend conferences and webinars in person and to talk to colleagues and friends. Today's topic is as relevant and important as ever, and I'm pleased to say a couple of words about it. And I just want to make a remark to Angelo in Brussels that actually I found that the first info day is going to be of the program LIFE is going to be in Croatia. It's quite natural to be in Croatia for somebody who is already working and living for 2 years in Croatia. I couldn't find a more appropriate and relevant place where this first info day should take place. So the LIFE program, although it's a French acronym, LIFE really does mean life for us all. LIFE is the EU flagship program for environment and climate action. We have created it back in 1992, when issues of climate change and protecting environment were not as pressing as they are today. But even back then, almost 30 years ago, we knew that these two topics matter and they need to be high on our agenda. We knew that we need to do our utmost to protect our planet. We knew it back then and we knew it now. That is why we have introduced changes to the LIFE program to make it better and adapt it to today's needs. Because the needs of 1992 are not the needs of today. It's 30 years of existence. In its 30 years of existence, more than 5,500 tremendous projects in areas such as the protection of biodiversity, the improvement of water, air and soil quality, waste management, and the energy transition have been funded through LIFE. These projects have made a real difference in many areas, and we intend to take it even further in the new programming period 2021-2027. We are, so to say, taking LIFE to the next level so we can meet the green targets we have set for ourselves in the decades to come, such as, for example, becoming the first climate neutral continent by 2050. For the new programming period 2021-2027, we have expanded the structure of the LIFE program. We have replaced the two old categories, environment and climate action, with 4 distinct sub-programs, namely nature and biodiversity, circular economy, quality of life, climate change mitigation and adaptation, and clean energy transition. We have done this in order to better deliver major EU Green Deal initiatives and targets for a toxic-free, circular, and climate-neutral Europe. Also, we have given LIFE a total budget of 5.4 billion euro, which is an increase of 60% compared to the previous period. The budget will be split with 3.5 billion euro going to the environmental activities and 1.9 billion euro going to climate action. The budget winner, so to say, is nature and biodiversity, as 40% of the total budget, or more than 2 billion euro, is earmarked for projects in those areas. We have also set up a new executive agency to manage and implement LIFE programs. This is what already Angelo mentioned. So I'm not going to delve into this. CINEA's competences will, of course, be extended to other European funding programs and initiatives related to climate action, such as the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030. The LIFE program is an ambitious funding program. So are our Green Deal targets. The LIFE program only adds to those Green Deal objectives. Some say it is all too ambitious, but it is not. It's not a question anymore of whether we want to do something about climate change and the protection of the environment. It is about how fast we can get people on board to do it. We do not have the luxury of time anymore. We need to take bold steps forward in order to ensure a tomorrow for generations to come, because if we do not do it now, I fear the consequences will be immense. And that is why we have LIFE, so we can have bold projects which will help us create green and sustainable future for us all. The LIFE program will contribute to making the necessary shift towards a clean, circular, energy efficient, low carbon and climate resilient economy, to protect and improve the quality of the environment and to halt and reverse the biodiversity loss. The European Commission, on its end, will ensure that LIFE projects especially support member states with so far low participation. And it is on the member states, public and private investors, to help out on their end and to make LIFE really come to life. Thank you very much. Hvala na pažnju.
Hvala lijepa gospodine Zlatev. Hvala lijepa svim govornicima. Sada smo otvoreni za pitanja medija. Izvolite. Izvolite.
Dobar dan i dobrodošli na drugi dio LIFE info webinara. Pozdravljam vas u svoje ime. Ja sam Anita Keser iz Ministarstva gospodarstva i održivog razvoja, a ujedno i član LIFE tima nacionalne kontakt točke za program LIFE u Hrvatskoj. Ne bih duljila, nego bih odmah na početku rekla par tehničkih informacija. Podsjećam vas još jednom da vam je omogućeno simultano prevođenje, tako da na ikonici Interpretation možete birati između hrvatskog i engleskog jezika. Ujedno vas ovim putem odmah pozivam da svoja pitanja postavljate tijekom izlaganja naših govornika, te ćemo nakon samih izlaganja davati odgovore. Možete odmah naznačiti da li je za gospodina Angela za nacionalnu kontakt točku ili za možda Fond za zaštitu okoliša vezano uz nacionalno sufinanciranje. Također bih vas zamolila da na kraju samog webinara ispunite naš evaluacijski obrazac koji će vam biti dostupan na linku pri ikoni chat. Evo, da ne duljim, predajem riječ gospođi Nikolini Petković Gregorić, nacionalnoj kontakt točci za program LIFE, te nakon nje s velikim zadovoljstvom najavljujem gospodina Angela Salsija, direktora programa LIFE u novoj agenciji CINEA, koja je zadužena za upravljanje samim LIFE programom, te će on reći nešto više o samom programu u novom programskom razdoblju kasnije u svojoj prezentaciji. Nikolina, izvoli.
Hvala Anita, evo pozdrav i od mene. Ispred nacionalne kontakt točke drago nam je jako da imamo priliku organizirati ovaj info dan kratki sa najosnovnijim informacijama, evo odmah neposredno nakon što je natječaj otvoren, jučer popodne. Ja ne bih sada duljila, evo imamo tu sreću da je Angelo s nama i da će nam on iz prve ruke podijeliti neke najosnovnije, najvažnije informacije o novom programu, što je novo, što se mijenja, a onda cijeli niz tehničkih detalja zapravo tek treba dobro iščitati i imat ćemo onda više detalja u narednim našim događanjima. Tako da, evo, krećemo. Angelo, the floor is yours. Please share most important details about the LIFE, new LIFE.
Yeah, so here we are. Thanks, Anita. Thanks, Nikolina. Nikolina told me that I have all the time that I want. So I was planning to end my presentation around 2 p.m. this afternoon, but I think it might be a bit too long. So let's keep it a little bit shorter, definitely a lot shorter. I will not be able to give you all the details, but you will be able to listen and again and again, how many times you want, to the beautiful video info day that we have recorded for you, and that should be available online right now or in the next couple of days. We are still doing some checks and working on the technicalities, but it should be online quite soon, if it's not already online. So this is the first and the most important information. So what you don't get from me, you can get from this info day online. You can use it, it's organized by sections, so you can travel along the info day itself, and you can obviously watch it again and again as many times as you want. And I really would advise you to do it, because there you have my colleagues who have been developing the various bits and pieces of the program, and that are certainly more into the details of the machinery of, say, the evaluation process instead of the financial elements and so on, which I will not be able in my presentation here to give you the full span. And even if I would try, you would certainly be overwhelmed by the information, and you would not bring home really a clear picture of the story. So I'll try to concentrate on a few essential and a few novelties, assuming that a number of the participants today are not new to LIFE. But I will still give you also the basics of the new LIFE program, so that also the participants who have never been playing with this program before, they will be able to understand what we are talking about. Then in September, early September, we are planning, if you want, a real LIFE info day. And that's probably the moment where the future applicants, those that have already started actively preparing a proposal, will have the opportunity to once again get into more details and help them to make sure that their proposals are fit for purpose. Now I'll try to share my screen. Let's see if I'm lucky. This is, I hope it works. So this is one part of the presentation, I'm sorry, that you will find online as well. So the new LIFE program, some of those elements have already been highlighted by the previous speakers, so I will not get into the details anymore, but you can see here in the bubbles all the elements that we're covering. And the most important information is that we indeed have more money than in the previous round. Far from being an
Sad smo, we lost you, Angelo. I ispričavam se svima što imamo tehničkih problema. Molim vas evo samo za malo strpljenja. Hvala. Dakle, dok čekamo da se Angelo ponovno spoji, evo još jedanput isprike. Potičam sve da pitanja koja imate da nam šaljete u chat, mi ćemo ih onda pročitati, nadam se da ćemo dobiti, da ćete dobiti odgovore, ako ne odmah, onda u najkraćem roku. Evo, na Q&A, tu navodno ima nekakav gumbić Q&A, tako da tu upišete vaše pitanje, molim vas. dok čekamo Angela, evo, da ne tratimo vaše vrijeme, s naše strane prenijet ćemo par informacija o programu LIFE. Dakle, kao što smo već čuli, proračun je za novo programsko razdoblje povećan. Jako nam je to drago i evo to zapravo znači da konačno i dolaskom Green Deala i stavljanjem okolišnih klimatskih politika visoko na političku agendu na razini Europske unije, da u stvari osigurava se i više novaca i kroz program LIFE i kroz druge fondove i programe, puno više novaca upravo za aktivnosti u području zaštite okoliša, za bioraznolikost i za zaštitu znači prirode, za okoliš i za klimatske aktivnosti. Program LIFE i dalje ostaje jedini program fully dedicated, znači isključivo namijenjen i posvećen okolišnim i klimatskim ciljevima. Usvojena je nova uredba koja definira novo programsko razdoblje i višegodišnji program rada u kojem ima više detalja na koji će se način provoditi program LIFE. Tako da sve, evo, pozivam da mi smo i te dokumente objavili na našim stranicama, oni se mogu jednostavno naći na internetu, a možemo vam ih i poslati ukoliko imate poteškoće pronaći. Znači, zaista vrijedno pročitati i dobiti više detalja. Kao što znate, Ministarstvo zaštite okoliša, ispričavam se, Ministarstvo gospodarstva i održivog razvoja je nacionalna kontakt točka za program LIFE. Mi zajedno sa Europskom komisijom imamo zadaću promovirati ovaj program i što više pomoći vama, zainteresiranim korisnicima, za kvalitetnu, uspješnu prijavu. Znači, tu smo za vas da nam se slobodno obratite sa svakim pitanjem o programu, ukoliko trebate nekakvu podršku, pomoć, možda pomoć u povezivanju sa nadležnim tijelima kada je potrebno dobiti nekakve i savjete ili podrške. Organiziramo ovakva događanja, radionice, infodane infodane i konzultacije putem telefona. Znači, slobodno nas nazovite, mi ćemo dati sve od sebe da vam pomognemo. Također, novosti u novom programskom razdoblju je da više nije EASME nego CINEA, ta nova agencija, znači European Climate Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency, koja je sada nadležna za provedbu programa LIFE. LIFE je centraliziran program Unije, to znači da svo upravljanje programom se vodi Europska komisija, odnosno CINEA delegirana agencija. Vi vaše projektne prijave šaljete direktno njima, ne ide ništa preko nacionalnih tijela, mi smo vam ovdje samo za pomoć i za podršku koju možemo pružiti u procesu prijave i kasnije kada projekt vodite. Znači, sada je ovo formacija u CINEA, ali evo ne bi o tome tu detaljno. Što se tiče samog financijskog okvira programa LIFE, najveći dio namijenjen je i dalje prirodi i bioraznolikosti. A sada nam je novost da je i jedan dio prijelaz na čistu energiju koji je prethodno bio u Horizon 2020, znači obzor 2020, prešao u LIFE. Ali mislim da se sama pravila za taj podprogram nisu bitno mijenjale u odnosu na ko je upoznat s tim dijelom iz Horizona. Važno je reći da zapravo sve ove teme koje LIFE pokriva su prioriteti europskih politika u području okoliša i klime i radi se o tematskim prioritetima koje LIFE financira koji su zaista nekako najvažniji, ključni, novi, one politike koje mogu doprinijeti najviše, najbrže poboljšanju stanja u okolišu. Tako su i teme zapravo prioritetne koje će se financirati iz LIFE-a, upravo one u kojima ili još uvijek ne postoji nekakva paleta uobičajenih rješenja. To su oni detalji koje još treba nekako nadograditi, gdje treba pronaći nekakva inovativna rješenja, inovativne metode, tehnike ili najbolje prakse, ali najbolje prakse koji su stvarno najbolje prakse, a da bi se primjenjivale. To je evo i jedna od novosti, kasnije ćemo o tome reći više. Dakle, kao što sam rekla, prioriteti politika doprinijeti prijelazu na održivo, kružno, energetski učinkovito gospodarstvo koje se temelji na obnovljivoj energiji i klimatski je neutralno. Također, zaštititi, obnoviti, poboljšati kvalitetu okoliša, zaustaviti gubitak bioraznolikosti i unutar toga cijeli niz konkretnih tema za poboljšanje stanja u zaštiti okoliša. Samo da provjerim da li možda Angelo s nama. Je. Ok, Angelo je s nama. I'm so happy.
I'm back.
Okay, Angelo, then the floor is yours again.
So let's see if I can stay in the meeting for a little bit longer this time. So this one we saw it. We were looking at this slide. So the clean energy transition, I was saying this is the new entry element coming from Horizon. For the rest, the program is confirmed to move on the three historical axes, so nature and biodiversity, circular economy and quality of life, which is everything you can think of about environment, which is not nature and biodiversity. So this is water, waste, soil, chemicals, floods, whatever. And then climate mitigation and adaptation, which also include a clean energy transition element. So there is not much to be said about the type of beneficiary that we are going to support. Historically, it's more or less one-third public, private, and NGOs. And this will not change. Obviously, depending from the sectors, you are more public or less NGOs or more private commercial. But there is a place for everyone under LIFE. So it's not designed for a specific type of beneficiary. One of the first novelties that we have is that while in the past, this part of the program, which was called Life Environment, was dedicated only to demonstrative or innovative projects, nowadays it's also open to what we call best practice. So pure implementation project can be hosted under this particular strand. So under nature and biodiversity, the objectives have not changed. Natura 2000, if you want, remains at the heart of our business. Obviously having nevertheless a broader spectrum of activities covering the rest of the biodiversity element, which might not be directly or indirectly covered through the Habitats and Birds Directive. We have clearly the invasive alien species issue, the ecosystem restoration, and so on. Probably the only new entry that is really relevant in the area of nature and biodiversity is that we have a much more emphasis on overseas countries and territories in our outermost regions. So much that we have a dedicated sort of sub-program which is called BEST, and I will tell you about later. Circular economy and quality of life, I told you, is everything else that is not nature and biodiversity under the environmental policy umbrella. And here you see that we are able to support activities which are close to market, but at the same time we are able to support public authorities and other stakeholders in the implementation of environmental legislation that do not require necessarily a market type of approach. And we still have integrated projects under this umbrella. And this time we go a bit beyond air, water, and waste, because we also added circular economy under the various elements that can be supported by integrated projects. The climate mitigation and adaptation part has not changed either that much. You will notice that the old information and governance strands, if you want, or areas do not appear as such anymore, but they are embedded into the two main axes. So you have governance elements within nature and biodiversity. You have governance elements within circular economy and quality of life, and the same for climate mitigation and adaptation. We have, for those projects in our machinery, I will not get into the details, a sort of an earmarked amount to make sure that they do compete at the same level with the others, because clearly a purely governance project or awareness raising project can hardly compete with a very hardware type of approach initiative. Then we have the clean energy transition. For those who have been playing with SET, so the clean energy transition program under Horizon, not much changes, except that instead of using an Horizon machinery, you use the LIFE program, but still the objectives are more or less the same, and you can find them here. So rolling out technologies and services and business models, attracting private finance, mobilizing local and regional investments, engaging and empowering consumers, and building a policy and a regulatory framework. So this is all about identifying and getting rid of barriers to the clean energy transition. So it's these projects are they are very much top down, and they define in very clear ways the terms of reference, contrary to what happens with the rest of the LIFE project. But that's because they are designed for specific, very specific issues. So what kind of tools are we going to use? Don't forget about this part. This is not part of this call, so you don't have to worry about it. It's just a promémoire, if you want. This is the part you are interested into. And the most relevant bits are, in particular, this first line, the standard action projects. This is what we used to call the traditional projects. These are the projects that have made a success of LIFE and that will continue to exist. These are the bottom-up approach projects. Then we have these two lines here, which in the previous edition were called integrated projects. Now they are called strategic nature projects. Those, the old integrated project for nature, if you want, and strategic integrated projects, the old integrated project for environment and climate. Then you have technical assistance. Technical assistance in the previous edition was only about supporting applicants to design integrated projects. Now technical assistance includes different types of projects, and I will get into the details later on. And then you have other actions. Other actions is projects that are not predefined and that the Commission defines, let's say, call by call. And in this case, the most visible element of the other actions is the so-called CSA, so the coordination and support actions under the SET, so under the energy transition sub-program. So the energy people will mostly use other actions type of projects, while the environment and climate people will mostly use standard action projects and integrated projects. In time, energy will probably chip in also in using standard action projects and possibly integrated projects. And then we have operating grants, like in the past, which refer to NGOs that are active at European level, okay? So these are the tools. Get used to these new definitions, SAPs, SIPs, SNAPs, and things like this, because that's the jargon that we will use in the years to come, at least for 7 years. Then from 7 years from now, somebody will come and will say, ah, no, it's not anymore SIP, it's something else, but okay. We'll worry about it when it comes. So the traditional projects, their objective and aim is exactly the same as before, and they keep the essential elements that really made LIFE a successful program. So the full flexibility of those projects, as big as you want, as long as you want, and with how many partners as you want. Nothing pre-imposed from Brussels in terms of you should be working with at least 3 countries, you should have a project of at least 10 million euros and anything like that. So there is nothing that we impose. The only thing obviously is that we have a rate of co-financing, which again makes it quite different from many other programs. So LIFE remains a rather sort of conservative type of program in the sense that our rate of co-financing are rather in the low bracket instead of the high bracket, and our standard one maximum is 60%. You can always ask less than 60%, but not more than 60%, unless you are in one of those projects dealing with nature and biodiversity, where you are targeting species or habitats which you consider priority. In that case, you have 2 additional maximum rate of co-financing possible. 67% if your project is a sort of a mixture, you target non-priority and you also target priorities, and 75% if you target exclusively priority habitat species. Big novelty, the definition of priority habitat or species is much, much wider. It's not anymore those that have an asterisk in the Habitats Directive, but it has to do with the status of conservation. So whether this is a IUCN Red List or whether this is the reporting from the member states under the Habitats and Birds Directive, if a species or a habitat is in a bad conservation status, then it becomes priority. What does it mean in practice? Is that in the future, 67 or 75% will risk to become sort of the standard rate of co-financing for nature projects, contrary to what was in the past, which was instead an exception. So in reality, in this case, we have made a major leap forward in terms of increasing our support. Our budgetary authorities, they imposed on us that, contrary to what we had in the past, that we should have a maximum duration, and we negotiated a maximum duration of 10 years, which is a very comfortable duration because none of our projects, of our traditional project ever exceeds that limit. So in reality, it's there, but you shouldn't be worrying about it. The standard nature project is just like the IPs before for nature. So it is still aimed at the implementation of the prioritized action framework, but it has a bit more narrative, if you want, on the mobilization of additional funds from other funding mechanisms, whether private, public, or EU. The co-financing remains as in the past. Again, we were imposed to set a maximum duration. We set it at 14 years. The longest I think we have currently is 10 years. So again, it shouldn't be an issue in this particular case. The mechanics by which we distribute the money is somewhat different. In the past, it was a certain number of integrated projects per country during the 7 years. In this case, we have a sort of an indicative allocation per country. So you can design a snap, or actually in your country, it would be pretty logical that you design a snap that covers the whole of Croatia. You can also go transnational if you want, but for the rest, I mean, it doesn't really strike me as completely different than what we had in the past. The strategic integrated projects, so now called SIPs, which were the integrated projects that we used before for environment and climate. For environment, the main novelty is the entry of the circular economy as one of the kind of strategies or plans that can be supported by those integrated projects. For climate change, there is not really much that changes because this is normally also the plans and strategies that we use as a reference for the past integrated projects. The operating grants for NGOs, this is, I said it's for a limited number of NGOs, so normally it's not really very interesting for the wide audience. We finance some 40 NGOs every year to support their network in order to give to civil society a voice in the policy making in Brussels. And this machinery, the biggest novelty is that we used to have a 2-year-long framework partnership agreement, which would secure each NGO money for at least 2 years. Now we have moved it to 3. So we have made it a little bit longer, guaranteeing them a bit more, a bit better the flow of money so that they can also plan their development and their investments better. Technical assistance, I told you that in the past it was one single kind of technical assistance project designed just to support the preparation of integrated project. Is still there, so the TAPP, as they are called, they are supporting the preparation of SNAPs and SIPs. A little bit less money than in the previous round. It was 100,000 euros in the previous round, but now it's 70,000 euro. And we are going, another big novelty, for a lump sum approach. So we agree on an amount, and that's it. Then you don't have to report on what you spend, how you spend, and so on. So the administration of the project is extremely simple, also because of the size of the project itself. TA CAP, this they existed before. They were called simply CAP, so capacity building. And these are the projects aimed at supporting the member states who are a bit either in a lowish side of their participation in life, or their success rate is pretty low. So you have the two kind of dramas, simply countries that don't submit that much, or countries that submit decently, but bad quality. And obviously both the situation, they lead to a low absorption from those countries from the LIFE program. They, differently than in the past when we had the possibility of having 2 rounds, this time we will have only 1 round. And the co-financing rate is similar to what we had in the past, 95%. So nothing changes in terms of administration of those projects. We were asked to set a maximum duration and we set it at 5 years. So again, quite comfortable for everyone. Other action grants. These are, so the first and the most popular section of those other action grants will be the one populated by the CSA, so the clean energy transitions projects, already from this call. Then you have the most important thing for other action grants is that the co-financing can go up to 95%. So it's quite different than from the standard action projects. Then I told you that we have a particular feature now for biodiversity, aiming at outermost regions and overseas countries and territories. So you can think about isolated places in the middle of the Pacific as tourist attractions like some of the Caribbean countries or in the middle of the Indian Ocean. The European Union still has a number of connections with territories across the globe. And these places, mostly islands, they hold most of the best hotspots of biodiversity across the globe. And so we wanted to pay particular attention to that. So we will have a dedicated program, which was already pre-existing, but was not managed under LIFE, and now it is, which is called BEST. And the BEST program will hand out small grants in the area of 100,000 euros. We will do it via proxy, so we will probably publish a call near the end of this year to identify one or a consortium of entities that will manage this program for us. Then we have action grants which will be financed directly to certain organizations which are already identified in the LIFE regulation. You don't have to worry about that. It's not even part of the school. And as I told you, the co-financing rate maximum is 95% under the best, under the small grant facility and biodiversity. So the best program, the single grants themselves, they can get up to 100% of support. So I think this is a bit the details about the other action grants for the SET program, so the energy transition program. As I told you, it's pretty much top down, so it's a different logic. It's more the logic of Horizon, if you want. So you have topics, and within the topic, you really have a predefined scope. They even identify what kind of stakeholders, how many, what's the size, and obviously this determines, this narrows down the ability of the applicants to invent, to try to fit their own idea. So they have to maneuver within the limits set from Brussels. In return to that, obviously, because Brussels thinks that these are really policy priorities, you get a much higher rate of co-financing, so 95%. And the duration there, the average duration is usually between 18 and 36 months, and they don't finance infrastructure cost. This is mostly labor, so staff, if you want, staff consultancy and so on. So this is the first part. Now I'll show you the deadlines for the call. I guess that you can see the Word file that I have on the screen, right? Nikolina, confirm.
We see your presentation still.
Still the presentation, okay. So let's see if I can, good Lord. Resume share, but not this one. Now screen sharing has stopped, and now let's see if I can share the right one. Here. This is the right one, huh?
Yeah, now we see your paper call.
Okay, so these are all the call in reality is a multiple call for proposal. You see here, we have 10 different calls in reality within the call. It's the new mechanics of our system, and this is the other big novelty. No more e-proposal. Those that in the past used our platform to submit, to generate, to create and edit, and later on to submit their proposal, it's gone. Now we use the same tools and the same interface as everybody else in the Commission, which is called the e-grant, which was originally developed for Horizon, and now is being used for more and more programs. LIFE did its onboarding now. So this is the first call ever that we launched using that tool. And you will not be surprised that in the very early days of the call, we might have to tweak and change and adapt and things here and there, because it's a learning by doing for ourselves. Everything was done really under very, very tight pressure. And I really thank my colleagues who did a hell of a job, because it was not only moving from an IT interface to another IT interface, it was moving from a culture to another one. So you have to think that LIFE had designed its own call templates, rules, and obviously its own IT application. So we were pretty much totally independent in the way we created these interfaces towards the applicants. Now we are within a corporate tool, and therefore a corporate tool calls for harmonization. And this means that behind in the back office that you don't see behind the call, things like the way the forms are presented, or the kind of information that they contain, the rules that are in the grant agreement, and all these kind of things, they have to be all harmonized. So the level of customization per program is there, but it's minimal. So most of the things are the same, whether you are playing with an Horizon, a LIFE, an Erasmus, or whatever else in the future. This is a big advantage for the applicants, because once you learn how to play, with this kind of tool, you can jump from one program to another and don't get lost. Obviously, for us, it was a massacre because we really had to change mentality almost completely. Still, we managed to preserve the specificities of life, and this is the good thing. So the calls. The call for SNAP, so the past integrated projects for nature, is organized in a two-stage approach, like in the past. So the publication is 13/7. The concept note, we are expecting it for 19th of October, and the full proposal for 7th of April. Okay.
Excuse me, Angelo, can you maybe make it
bigger? Yep. Let's see if I can make it bigger. Is that big enough?
Maybe a little bit more.
That's
no, okay.
That's going to be difficult because the system
it's
doesn't
fine.
allow me to. Oh yeah, here. Better?
Better, thank you.
Okay. So back snaps. So two-stage approach, like in the past, same mechanics, 1910 concept note, 7.4 full proposal. SIPs, so the integrated projects for environment. Same story, two-stage approach, same dates. Okay. Then SIP for Klima, so the integrated projects for Klima. Same story, same dates. Then we move to SAP, which is the thing which is mostly interesting for you. So the normal traditional projects life. So the one for nature, the SAP standard action projects for nature and biodiversity. We expect the full proposal. So it's a one-stage approach this year on the 30th of November. Why did we move from a two-stage approach as we used in the last call for the past life regulation to a one-stage approach, which is like going backwards if you want, because that was our standard a few years ago, simply because we don't have the physical time to execute the budget within the time limits set by the financial regulation. So for this reason, in the first year of the new life, we will apply a one-stage approach. At the end of the submission period, we will run a small investigation with the beneficiaries to see if the one-stage approach using a simpler interface, because the e-grant interface means also that you are requested a lot less information, especially on the financial aspects. If this is simple enough to justify going for a full proposal instead of having a longer period to be used for the two-stage approach, or whether most of the people would like to revert back to the two-stage approach. So having a concept note and later on a full proposal. If the reply will be, let's go back to two-stage, then we'll go back to two-stage. If the people tell us, oh, yeah, but now it's much simpler, and therefore let's keep it in one shot if you want, because it has a series of advantages, obviously. The whole evaluation period from the submission until you get the grant signed and the money in the bank is much shorter. Then we will keep the one stage. But I feel that from the feedbacks that we got in the past from the applicants will probably most likely would like to go backwards to the two-stage approach. The circular economy and quality of life, so the old life environment part of traditional project is same deadline, full stage, so full proposal to reach us on the 30th of November. Climate change standard action projects, again, 30th of November. The clean energy transitions, which, as you remember, I told you that are going to use these other actions type of projects. The deadline is the 12th of January, 2022, for the full proposal. So it's organized in now one stage. The technical assistance for the preparation of strategic projects, so the old technical assistance project for integrated project. The deadline is the 22nd of September, 2021 for the proposal. The proposals are very simple. The operating grants for non-profit organization, the deadline is 28th of September, but you don't have to worry because normally it doesn't refer to you. And for Nikolina and Anita, the capacity building project for member states, we plan to launch the call in the third quarter of 2021, and we still have to decide the deadline, but most likely it will be a sort of a period more than a deadline during which you can present your proposal. So I think I have done my bit. Now, any other novelty that I can mention to you is that well, there will be a big change in the evaluation criteria. We have reduced the evaluation criteria down to 4. So and they are all the same. So they are the same for integrated projects, for standard action projects, whether these are energy or environment or climate. So again, an attempt to harmonize things. And the most important, we still have the concept of, on the one side of the impact of the project, and on the other side of the feasibility of the project. So the way your project is designed, which we used to call it in the past, financial and technical coherence and quality, is still there. We'll call it differently, but it doesn't matter. So if you design your project well, that's already a big step forward. But the most important, in terms of scoring, the most important criterion will be the impact, which contains sustainability, replication, and the impact itself. So if you design a very, very local type of project, which is well designed, but will deliver a very small impact, the likelihood that you get the money is low. The right combination is an ambitious project, well designed. That's the right way to put things. I think, so I told you about Horizon. Those that have already played, eGrant, those that have already played with the eGrant application tool, the first thing you have to do is that you have to create a user account, what they call a PIC, a participant indicator code or something like that. I don't remember exactly what the code stays for. Once you have created this, you get a username and a password through what we call the ECAS system that allows you in a secure way to get into the participant portal and to open the call and to start creating your proposal. The proposal is set out in various sections. Some of those are pre-formatted, like they were in e-proposal, typically the administrative forms. Who am I? What is my address? My VAT number, and so on and so on. While the biggest part of your proposal, which is the narrative that describes what you want to do, will be in a PDF file. So we will have a template for you that you will have to use, but you will work in Word. And once you have finished your work, you transform your Word file into a PDF and you upload it as a picture in the system. So it's not anymore the logic of e-proposal where everything was in boxes in a database format. This should make things a lot easier. As I told you, we are going to ask much less in terms of finances. Good things is that we are keeping the exception that we applied during the COVID crisis time for the depreciation. So 100% recognition of the cost for equipment and infrastructure, provided that you guarantee that these assets will continue to be used for the same purpose for the whole economic life, even after the end of the project. We allow you to include virtual values for volunteers. And what else did we include? I now forget. And the possibility for every project to include a certain amount for what we call cascading grants. So for supporting local initiatives or smaller initiatives via a granting mechanism within the project. So you get, let's say, 2 million euros from us, and you can use part of that money to give grants in turn to local initiatives, for example, for 5,000 euros to this and that, and for activities that are clearly supporting and contributing to the objectives of the project. In this way, you make sure that these local initiatives that normally cannot participate in a LIFE project because of the administration that is behind a LIFE project, they can still do what they want to do, and they can still contribute to your project. We are still very keen about seeing private land conservation in nature. We have a dedicated topic for the Bauhaus under circular economy and quality of life. So you know the Bauhaus is this new priority of the Commission, and it's about affordable, sustainable, and nice buildings. So if you want, you have the aesthetic, you have the environment, and you have the economic element all together. So we invite project proposals that indeed want to develop, design, test, or whatever else, buildings or elements of the urban fabric that are indeed at the same time affordable, aesthetic, and sustainable. There will be a sort of an earmarked amount within the call for this, but I make a bit of publicity about it, and I think I leave it to that, and any question is more than welcome. And I stop sharing.
Hvala, Angelo. Thank you, Angelo. Maybe, možda samo da stavimo još onu jednu prezentaciju našu, da prođemo par stvari. Dakle, ovo što je sada rekao upravo Angelo, samo da još jedanput ponovimo, za 2021. godinu, a možda i kasnije, prijava projekta ide u jednoj fazi, znači nema više concept note pa full proposal. Novi je portal na koji se svi mi moramo priviknuti. Kasnije ću vam pokazati gdje pronaći projektnu dokumentaciju. Trajna dobra u ovom trenutku ostaju 100% prihvatljiv trošak. Znači prihvatljiv trošak, ne 100% da će se financirati 100%, nego da su 100% prihvatljiv trošak, a onda opet u okviru onoga koliko daje LIFE, posto financiranja. Inovativnost LIFE projekata i dalje se gleda se sada i na razini države članice i na sektorskoj razini. Znači možda je to nešto što je nama najviše interesantno, jer je nekada teško napraviti projekt koji je inovativan na razini cijele Europske unije, ali bitno je da projekti imaju velik utjecaj i da se očekuje značajno poboljšanje stanja, a da ta inovativnost ipak bude na neki način svakako na razini države članice, moguće i na sektorskoj razini. Volonterski rad je dalje prihvatljiv trošak. Oni koji su prijavljivali prošle godine malo su imali, to je bilo jedna od novosti i prošle godine. Dakle, jednostavno je da ako vam uključujete volontere, znači taj dio, to je na neki način in kind trošak, uzima se u obzir u troškove projekta. Nekakve konkretne troškove koje možete imati za volontere, na primjer nekakvo osvježenje za njih ili nekakve, ne znam, kabanice ako idu na teren, to je stvaran trošak, ali znači njihov rad ulazi, ima točna formula kako se izračunava. Nije baš jednostavno, ali da se savladati. U timesheet se upisuje samo vrijeme provedeno na projektu, a ne kao i do sada sve što radite. Ukida se pravilo 2%. Konačno, nakon što smo ga savladali, evo, više nam nije potrebno. Znači, 2% zaboravite. Ako niste znali, ne trebate znati. Ako je savladao, može ga zaboraviti. Otvoreni postupak javne nabave privatne institucije nisu obveznici. Ok, ovo možemo ovo proći kasnije i možemo se sada vratiti Angelu i pitanjima u stvari. Ja imam jedno pitanje za Angela. Koliko se ova financijske tablice su se pojednostavile? So financial budget, how detailed is it? Is it less detail or does it stay very much detail? And concerning co-financers, is it obligatory paper within the project documentation to be involved in? So do you need to know all financial structure or it's just simplified? If you know. Mike?
Sorry. The simplification of the financial forms is quite impressive. You will have to report a similar, but not even the same, let's say, part of the same level of details that you use to report for staff, because usually this is also the one of the biggest, it's not the biggest chunk of where the budget goes. And then for the other categories, it's just the biggest amounts where we ask a bit more details. But for example, you don't have to tell us in 20,000 lines how many travels and how much money per travel you will have to carry out, and so on and so on. So it's definitely a lot easier and more trust-based, if you want, than it was in the past. In terms of the co-financer, if I recall correctly, we managed to preserve some sort of a form which is similar to the A6 form of the past. So we still want to know who's going to put the missing money, and in particular, obviously, if a co-financer is an essential co-financer, we want to be reassured that the beneficiaries did not only drink coffee with them and said, yeah, I'll give you money if they give you money. We want to be sure that the ones that said, I'm giving you money are really aware and committed to do that. And that's why we ask them to sign some sort of forms, because if we engage in a project, and it has already unfortunately happened in the past, rarely, but it did, for 2 million euros, it means that these 2 million euros will not be given to another project. So if later on this project comes back and says, the guys that promised me the money, they don't give me the money anymore, and therefore I have to stop the project, we're not doing really a good service to Europe, don't we? So, and I think it's in the interest of the applicants to be to protect himself, to have a bit of certainty that that money indeed will come. So that's the story about the co-financers. Obviously, if a co-financer is a minor co-financer, probably will not insist that much if the paperwork is not 100% perfect.
Super.
And there was a question to which you already replied, Nikolina. There was somebody, an anonymous, asking about the 2% rule. The 2% rule is gone. I don't know if they will put this novelty, this news on the newspaper, but for us working in the LIFE program, it's a nightmare that disappears.
Well, I must admit, I almost regret. So
yeah, me too, because it took 10 years to understand it ourselves. So now.
Yeah, and it gave me the power to explain that rule. Really, like no one understood.
Well, okay. Everything is simpler.
Yeah. To su stvarno izvrsne vijesti, pojednostavljenje znači financijskih tablica, sve je puno jednostavnije. Što se tiče sufinancijera, kao što je Angelo rekao, osim fonda što imamo ovdje sada, ali uvijek je dobro razmišljati i dobro se gleda ukoliko je sufinancijer netko ko zaista ima interes u tom projektu, u tim rezultatima, želi na neki način podržati, možda i dalje koristiti, znači sustainability, replicability i dalje ostaju glavne riječi u LIFE-u. Imamo pitanja? Okay, so we have more questions and Anita will
Evo, pristigla su neka pitanja. Angelo je neke odgovore već dao, možda možemo ponoviti ukoliko netko nije čuo. Znači, imamo pitanje za Angela. Angela, question for you. Will the Horizon Europe Guarantee Fund be open to LIFE projects?
Sorry, I didn't get it.
Ponovit ću pitanje. Angelo, can you hear me now? Will the Horizon Europe Guarantee Fund be open to LIFE projects?
Good question, but I don't have a reply.
Okay.
So the mechanics is in general has been and still is the following. You can use any other EU funding source as long as this is not a grant to match up, if you want, part of your of the matching funds that you need. You can ask, for example, a loan, and indeed you can add up this to the co-financing that we give you. But I think that the question was not probably this one, but maybe the question was referring to the guarantee fund, which is currently used under Horizon to cover for the guarantees in case of low financial viability, or am I mixing up things?
I don't think you're mixing up things. Maybe the question wasn't put right.
Well, nevertheless, if the question was about will LIFE use the mechanism that Horizon is currently using to have a guarantee fund that chips in the case if there is a bankruptcy or whatever, a failure of one of the beneficiaries, no, we will not. Okay. Too complicated and too expensive, at least for a program like LIFE.
Thank
so
you.
we ask every year 4 or 5 maximum bank guarantees, and in most of the cases, the applicants manage to get the bank guarantees, and the cost of those bank guarantees compared to what we would have to pay to participate in the whole guarantee fund mechanism would be, it would not justify, if you want, the effort.
Are you ready for the next question?
Yeah.
So the next question is from Xavier, I think. In the recently published call, Fishes, there is a mention about proposals for projects that have already started, indicating that they will be assessed on a case-by-case basis. So is this a novelty with respect to the past programs? And in this case, proposals could include projects starting just after the proposal submission. So should these previous activities consider as preparatory? And what means case-by-case evaluation? Which criteria will be used or how? I can go question by question if you want.
No,
okay.
Okay, but the first part of the question, you find me unprepared in the sense that I have no clue what it means case by case. In reality, most of our projects, if not almost every one of our projects of the past, was part of a long-term thread. So it did not simply poof. It was not a spark out of the blue and that appeared and then disappeared. People tend to think that a project is a sort of a element in time and space which is completely disconnected from something which is pre-existing. In reality, most of our projects, they are part of continuous development. Sometimes they were an Horizon project that then became a LIFE project that then becomes again an Horizon project and so on, or even only uses own resources. So they are all usually part of pre-existing activities, especially if these are managed by NGOs and public authorities. seldom, very seldom, they could be really single initiative, say in the private commercial sector that did not have a precedent, if you want, but usually also those ones have a precedent. So I don't know what this particular reference means, but it remains the case that you can charge to the project costs which are related to activities that will start after the submission deadline. And when I say will start, it means in legal terms, it means that you will have incurred the obligation to pay for those actions after that deadline. So if we have set 30th of November, in theory, you could design your project starting on the 1st of December. Starting date means that every action for which you have incurred the liability to pay the cost for, so you have ordered, for example, on the 1st of December, a new car for your activity, which is part of the project, in theory could be eligible. So this has always been there and will continue to remain there. It's at your own risk, because obviously if you buy the car and we don't support your project, then you will have to pay the car by yourself. And normally we tend to give an indication in the calls of the earliest starting date. I don't know whether this is still the case in the call this year, but until the last call, we had the earliest possible starting date, which was fixed more or less at the time when we were sure that we would be able to sign the grant agreements.
Thank you. So one easy question for you, just to relax. Does new LIFE program also cover the previous sub-program, environmental governance and information?
Yes, it does, but in a different way. So the access is much more on the governance part. The classical information and awareness raising, my policy colleagues were much more, they were convinced that they normally should be embedded either in SIPs, SNAPs, and SAPs, so in the other projects, instead of being really the only element of a single project. So we have topics dedicated, priority topics that are fully dedicated to governance project, which may contain here and there some elements of awareness raising, but I think that the old projects purely dedicated to just information for the sake of informing, they are pretty much gone. It's still possible. It has always been possible even before we invented the information strand. If you take, for example, brown bear or wolves, one of the biggest problems that you try to address is coexistence. And most of the activities that you will carry out to address this problem of coexistence is communication and awareness raising. So you see there, you can design a project 10 million euros on bear, and 8 million euros they go on trying to convince shepherds, farmers, hunters to coexist with these large carnivores. And is it an information project? Is it a nature conservation project? You know, depends what kind of actions and tools you need to solve the problem. So.
Thank you, Angelo. So the next question, even I can say yes, but does LIFE program support the SDGs, the goals of the sustainable development?
Of course. we support everything. It's the problem is that nowadays in the web of markers, indicators, objectives, targets, the narrative is so complicated that if you start accumulating and the Green Deal and the Paris Agreement and the SDGs and whatever, and I mean, I think if we go back to basics, LIFE in 1992 was adopted and designed to support specifically environmental policy. And when we talk about policy, we talk about law, legislation. So Brussels wakes up one day and say, you have to protect all the birds of Europe. And how do you do it? You have to do it in this way and that way. Then Croatia joins the European Union and they design a law that transposes the Birds Directive. And they say in Croatian, the way they will apply and try to reach the objectives set in that directive. And then somebody says, oh, that's very nice. We have a law that says that I cannot hunt this, I have to protect that, I have to set a perimeter for that, I have to design a management plan for this, and blah, blah, blah. Who's going to help me? And that's where life comes in. So if we start thinking in those terms and we bring it back to the harsh reality of implementing each and every piece of our laws and legislation, then probably we understand better. Then obviously, if we want to frame it in the bigger scenario, yes, of course, we do support and we even try to sort of aggregate the information of our projects to show that indeed life does contribute to the SDGs, as it would make perfect sense. Huh?
Thank you for this explanation of from beginning to these days of the LIFE program. The next question could be for you and for Nikolina also. So should affiliated entity be in any way connected with the partner?
Nikolina, you want to reply?
Nikolina, mora li affiliated entity na neki način biti povezan sa partnerom?
Mora li, ne mora, znači mora i ne mora. Mislim da je ideja LIFE-a i ovaj beauty of the life u kojoj Angelo priča je da se uključe svi oni koji su nužni, a da bi se postigao neki cilj. Znači imate problem, imate cilj i morate doći do tog cilja. Do tog cilja ćete doći uključujući sve nužne dionike, sve partnere ili nikoga, ali one koji trebaju biti tu za tim stolom na licu mjesta, a da bi riješili taj problem, da bismo nakon završetka financiranja bili na boljem mjestu, da bismo poboljšali stanje. Dakle, vjerujem da je pravilo i dalje isto da nema podugovaranja među partnerima, da nema podugovaranja između afilijala, znači da ne možemo, nego onda ako ta filijala nešto treba odraditi, trebala bi biti partner na projektu ili na neki način se uključiti da se to legitimno vidi. Ali sad, evo, ne znam šta stoji iza toga. Angelo, if you could say something more about that.
Well, nevertheless, there must be a factual link between an affiliated and one of the partners, the former partners in the project, so the associated beneficiary or the coordinating beneficiary, otherwise they are not affiliated. So they cannot be, let's say, part of another group, for example, and be affiliated, participating in the project. To be affiliated in a LIFE project, you have to be affiliated with one or the other of the partners of the project. So you must have a commercial or legal bound, more than commercial, with one of the partners of the project. And then you are acknowledged as affiliated, and you can do the actions and your costs will be considered eligible, but you do not necessarily have to step in as an associated beneficiary in the project.
Thank you. We have two more questions. Angelo, for you, will the national contact point be able to see the project proposals on the new portal funding and tenders?
Yes, but it's if it was complicated, but we had sort of solved it under e-proposal, under e-grant is even more complicated because nobody ever thought about this particular possibility. So the only way to make sure that an applicant who wishes to open in terms of read the possibility to access the proposal to the NCP, for example, is to invite them as one of the let's say participant in the project. So there are different roles and profiles that can be associated to the in e-grant to the various editors, if you want, of that project. And one can be invited with very limited rights, if not even any. And in that case, you have to invite the NCP. Now, will it work? We already had troubles in e-proposal. In e-proposal, we invented a mechanism where we where the beneficiary had to actively deactivate the possibility for NCPs to see the proposal. Otherwise, most of the NCPs would have seen nothing, simply because the applicants forgot about it. But in your situation, where you have a national fund which is contributing to the proposals, I mean, you have a vested interest in knowing what's coming up, especially if they ask you, if they ask the founder to put in part of the matching funds. And in that case, I would advise you, especially if they come to you for financial support, tell them, invite us so in e-grant, in the participant portal, so that we can see your proposal. Otherwise, forget about our money. That's, I think that's the only weapon that you really have to be sure that you see them. In 2022, we will take stock of the reality. I know that a number of member states in the past were pretty critical about the level of transparency of live data in general, whether on the evaluation or on the calls vis-a-vis the NCPs. So how much NCPs would have access to data, and they were frequently referring to Horizon as a best practice. Now let's do 2021 call. Let's take stock and let's see whether it was better in the past or it's better now. If it's better now, well, everyone will have gained, and if there is anything that we have to adjust in the near future, we will probably need also your support and pressure, because one thing is to convince us, if we are the master of our own IT, that we should do some IT tweaking to change things. Another thing is to convince the corporate managers of e-grant, if you wish some changes in the machinery. So there we might have to pull in resources. There was a question in the question and answer to which I would like to see if you have any answer. It was addressed actually to the Croatian NCP, and it refers to the Seal of Excellence.
Yes.
I'm pretty curious about it as well.
I have to read it, Angelo, because Nikolina can't see it now. So has the Croatian National Contact Point started discussions with other Croatian competent authorities on implementation of the Seal of Excellence? That was the question from our colleague Neven.
Započeli smo razgovore o Seal of Excellence, ali s obzirom da nismo ni od kolega, evo, nismo do sada uspjeli dobiti dobru praksu kako bi to na koji način se moglo uzeti u obzir. Evo, u ovom trenutku nemamo rješenje za to. Evo, ne znamo. Problem nastaje u onom momentu kada LIFE projekt koji je dobro ocijenjen i dobije taj pečat bi se trebao financirati iz nekog drugog izvora. Taj drugi izvor ima neka druga pravila, ima neke druge prihvatljive troškove, ima neke druge kombinacije, neke druge uvjete i onda opet bi trebalo zapravo preraditi projekt. I sad taj dio, evo, pokušavamo još, radimo na tome i zapravo što bi bilo možda, Angelo, bolje, da li bi bilo bolje nekako isforsirati taj dio da Seal of Excellence projekti, da se pronađe neki nacionalni izvor za financiranje toga, ili zapravo takvi projekti imaju sljedeće godine veće šanse možda dobiti LIFE grant.
But Nikolina, the first thing is that we have still to devise from scratch, from zero, the whole machinery of setting out Seal of Excellence. I was one of the front runners at the time when the FP7 people started with the Seal of Excellence and the research. And after 2 years that they were running it, I immediately took action to see whether we could use it under LIFE as well. And at the time they discouraged me because of a number of reasons. Years after, frankly, I am not aware of a huge, overwhelming success of the Seal of Excellence mechanism at EU level. Maybe there are pockets of application here and there in one member state or another, but I've never heard that massively the projects which were highly scored but not retained because of limitation of budget were then taken up by cohesion fund instead of structural funds or whatever else. So I don't think that the conditions have changed so dramatically that all of a sudden this will happen with LIFE project. I hope that I will be proven wrong, but it's as you say, you submit to LIFE and you play along with the LIFE rules. You are successful, but not enough, and you don't get the money. You get the seal of excellence, and then you have to revert, say, to structural funds authorities, who tell you, yeah, but I have different rules, I have different mechanics, I have different timing, too late, we already finished the money, you know, tons of different reasons, and inventing a mechanism where you would chip in directly and use own resources to finance excellent projects that didn't succeed simply because we didn't have enough. I think it could be an interesting way out. Let's take, for example, if we would already have a list of projects like that with a seal of excellence, and we are in the green recovery plans implementation, that would be a great place where people are simply give me ideas, but good ideas, and good ideas that I can implement and rapidly. And it's very much contextual, the success or the failure of this kind of ideas like the seal of excellence. For your information, if we talk about one particular area, which is nature and biodiversity, in the last 4 years, we have constantly continued to record an increased number of proposals and an increased quality of the proposal. Year after year, our level, the threshold, the minimum threshold for being financed has gone up. And in the last year, you needed 75 points out of 100 to get money. So it means at school, it's 8 out of 10. You are one of the best pupils in class. And it's really very annoying and stressing to see so many good proposals. We could have financed this year. We could have doubled the money that we had for Life Nature and finance all the money and use all the money for very good projects. In those conditions, indeed, if somebody would come in and say, hey, I have money, you have projects, that would be a perfect solution. But then it really relies on the shoulders of each member states, private foundations, and so on and so on. But competition is going to go up. Huh? I have the feeling.
Yeah, that's a problem. And even if we manage to succeed with the cohesion fund, still the question is, who will monitor the project implementation, who will, check the control and everything. So they just simply don't have the answer is no. So maybe some ad hoc solution we will find later on, but still those good projects are invited, right, to apply next year.
Yeah. This is the return rate, in particular in nature, it's almost 60%. So 60% of the project we financed last year were projects that had already been submitted once, twice, 30, even 4 times. So it's the stamina of these people, the resistance that they have, it's admirable. I mean, they come again and again and again, and the poor guys, for one reason or another, every year they miss it by 1 point. It's really horrible, but but they come again, and most of them, at the end of the day, they succeed, and that's the nice side of the story.
Well, it's a great competition. So upornost se isplati, ali evo nemojte da vas to obeshrabri, da morate ići nekoliko puta na prijavu, ali u svakom slučaju ako je projekt dobar, ako je ideja dobra, ako su rezultati očekivano značajni i uspješni, mislim da LIFE u svojoj fleksibilnosti i usmjerenosti na te najvažnije ciljeve i za upravo ono što, ne znam, kad želite napraviti nešto najbolje u skladu sa tim aktualnim politikama i problemima koje želimo riješiti, LIFE je tu za financiranje toga. Imamo još pitanje?
Evo imamo još dva pitanja. Zadovoljstvo mi je pozdraviti i predstavnicu Fonda za zaštitu okoliša i energetsku učinkovitost, gospođu Vlatku Gulanzetić. Pitanje je upućeno za fond, pa evo, pitanje glasi: Did the Environmental Protection and Energy Efficiency Fund consider changing some of their practices that were hostile to applicants, such as elimination of LIFE eligible costs for their co-financing? Znači neka promjena liste prihvatljivih troškova koji su prihvatljivi i LIFE-u.
Evo, da odgovorim na to pitanje. Fond inače sufinancira sve svoje projekte, prati projekte sufinanciranjem, znači u određenom postotnom učešću, za koje fond smatra da neki troškovi nisu prihvatljivi za sufinanciranje. Ovo često iz razloga i ograničenih sredstava, naravno, tako da prije svega se prate zaista projektne aktivnosti i konkretni projektni troškovi na projektu. Tako da moram odgovoriti na ovo pitanje. Nažalost da ćemo i dalje ostati kod ovih svojih neprihvatljivih troškova, poput onih za javne ustanove i javna tijela da plaće nisu prihvatljiv trošak jer bi to bilo duplo financiranje, i indirektni troškovi koje fond ne smatra da su nam prihvatljivi troškovi u financiranju provedbe cijelog projekta.
Vlatka, zahvaljujem. Ostalo je još jedno pitanje. Vjerovatno je već dan odgovor, ali ponovit ćemo ga još jedan puta. What will be the maximum level of pre-financing in the new LIFE call? So, Angelo, perhaps?
Yeah, we had to change it, unfortunately, because of budgetary limitation.
We don't hear you.
Now, can you hear me?
Now, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we had to change it because of budgetary limitation in 2021. Don't ask me why, but in the budgetary discussion, at the end of the day, we had less credit for payments that would be necessary to continue with the rate of initial pre-financing that we had foreseen, so the original 40%. And this is a discussion that happens between member states and the European institutions. So it's has nothing to do with LIFE itself. So we had less money, and therefore we had to adjust. And we adjusted in a way that nevertheless is not so horrible, because we are giving 30% first pre-financing, but then we are recovering by giving a second pre-financing of 50%, which means that we end up exactly with the same total amount of pre-financing. It's simply spread differently than before. So before it was 40-40-20, now it's 30-50-20. And as you can see, it doesn't really change much in terms of the final exposure of the beneficiary. So I hope that you will be able to digest it, but still you get, and the good thing is that the day after we have countersigned, or you have countersigned the grant agreement, our process starts, and in a matter of 1-2 weeks maximum, you have the cash in the bank. So in that sense, playing with us means that you really have at least the financial tools to make sure that you can start immediately. There is no excuse.
Hvala, Angelo. Evo, i to je jedan od super stvari u LIFE-u, da imate to pred financiranje, da odmah po potpisivanju ugovora, ali vrlo brzo nakon dobijete ratu, i to značajno. Ovo sa 30, 50 i 20 kao balans zaista izvrsno. Znači nema no excuses. Ali podsjećamo da zaista kad se krene sa projektom da treba početi čim prije, da treba uzeti u obzir vrijeme koje vam treba za javnu nabavu, za zapošljavanje tima, za ne znam, cijeli niz izazova s kojima se susrećemo, da njih treba uključiti u cijeli projekt i gledati da se čim prije počne sa aktivnostima koje su prve na redu, a da se ne bi na kraju kasnilo. Kratko ću samo za nacionalno sufinanciranje reći, evo, s obzirom da je natječaj LIFE otvoren jučer, nemamo puno više informacija podijeliti s vama. Imat ćemo aktivnosti na jesen u kojima ćemo dati puno više detalja, imat ćemo webinare, ali svi će oni biti dostupni i online, kao što je rekao Angelo, što priprema CINEA. Međutim, i mi ćemo odraditi par webinara i radionica za pomoć vama u prijavi na jesen, u 9. mjesecu najvjerojatnije, sada sigurno neće niko se baviti s tim. Što se tiče nacionalnog sufinanciranja, evo, ovisno o ovim novim pravilima i kako točno izgleda projektna prijava, prilagodit ćemo uvjete i poziv. O svemu ćete biti pravovremeno obaviješteni, ali veselimo se u svakom slučaju da se nacionalno sufinanciranje od strane fonda nastavlja i dalje. Trudit ćemo se pojednostaviti sve moguće procedure koje nisu nužne. Međutim, trebate nam na vrijeme najaviti, dostaviti svu dokumentaciju, evo, kako bi se moglo i planirati i vidjeti koliko sredstava treba i dalje dogovoriti. I još sam vam samo htjela pokazati gdje na ovom e-grantu možete pronaći natječajnu dokumentaciju, pa možda samo da, evo, naši kolege iz tehnike, znači kad idete na njihovu stranicu, idete na program LIFE, onda malo niže imate ovo view, tu je 33, tu su neki tek dolaze, neki su gotovi, međutim ovih koji su otvoreni ima 17, znači za svaku je temu posebno. Na primjer, bilo koji, evo sad možemo otvoriti bilo koji. Kliknite evo na Nature Biodiversity, možete kliknuti ili gdje god. I znači kad idete, tu vam pišu osnovne informacije, možete pronaći dokumente koji su relevantni i idete na topic, conditions and documents. I kad odete malo niže još, i tu imate vidi više, gore. See more, ili što piše show more. Znači topic, conditions and documents. I tu imate natječajnu dokumentaciju. Imate call dokument, imate ovaj aplikacijsku formu i druge dokumente koji su obavezni, znači koje možete prethodno vidjeti i započeti pripremu dokumenata. Ok, to je to, možemo sad to gasiti.
Evo, ja sam htjela sve sudionike pozdraviti, ujedno ih podsjetiti da evaluacijski obrazac mogu pronaći na linku na ikoni chat, te ih zamoliti da ga ispune. I bliži se vrijeme ručka, već je vrijeme za...
Okay, so once again I would like to thank Angelo for joining us. We are very proud to have this info day, even short, but still online. We will have some more. Angelo, thank you very much for your presentation. And do you have the final word maybe?
You mentioned you mentioned e-grant and you showed the people where they can find the right documents, and the bottom start submitting. So that shows that indeed they can already start playing around with it. And the sooner they do, the better it is, especially for the old LIFEs that have never been playing with Horizon projects. For the others, it's partially a déjà vu. The good thing is that the harmonization brings also a number of bonuses together. So once we will start the evaluation process, the whole exchange with the applicant will happen in the evaluation environment connected to eGrant, and the applicants will be able to see the results online, and even will see a sort of a train with milestones and where the proposal stands. So you don't have to bombard your MEPs or anybody like that to know where your project is, if they have evaluated it, if it passed or not. The second good thing is that once we start what we call the grant agreement preparation, everything is online. No more exchange of paper. You don't have to sign a contract in paper anymore, neither with a certified electronic signature. You sign it in the eGrant environment, and we sign it as well in the same environment. So everything is in that place. And later on, when the project starts and you start reporting, you start writing and exchanging correspondence with us, same story. There is no more paper flying around. Everything is in one single repository, and you have access to us, and we have access to you through the same interface. So in reality, this has a number of advantages. Nobody asked, but I want to reassure you, because some of you might have already enjoyed in the past this kind of services. Our monitoring system with the local monitors continues. So we will still have people on the ground that speak your language and that will help you avoid doing mistakes during the implementation of your project, and will monitor your project for us. They will be our eyes on the ground, whether on technical or financial elements. And for the rest, I can only reassure you that the team in Brussels is just as strong as ever. Now we are organized in 2 units. So LIFE is a bigger program, and therefore we also became a slightly bigger. So instead of 1 LIFE unit, we have a unit that deals with nature and environment. This is called CINEA D2. And this is I am currently the acting head of unit of that unit, but we are identifying and will nominate very soon a new head of unit that will take my place. And the other unit is dealing with energy and climate, and is currently headed by Mr. Christian Strasser, who is the head of unit. Both units, they are working together like if it was a single unit, and they are both in the same department, of which I am currently responsible, which also includes the MFAF, so all the MFF, the Marine and Fisheries Fund, with which we share a lot, because a lot of what LIFE does is same or overlapping and synergic with what the EMFF used to do and what MFAF will do in the future. So it's a very nice department where we will be able to develop a lot of synergies and exploit the coexistence of these various bits and pieces. But the most important thing for you is that the people that you will see, my colleagues, Laura Giappichelli, Aurelio Politano, Mikko Zinska, Maya, or whoever else, they are all extremely and continue to be super passionate about what they do. And their motivation is indeed a big driver in the relation with the beneficiaries. They really think that LIFE is a great proxy to make the EU positively visible on the ground, and really to help citizens to give legs to their ideas. So I think that's the positive message that I want to leave you with. And I hope that this will incite you to present us not 100 proposals, which was our old target. Now we always have to be more ambitious. So in the next call, I want 150 proposals from Croatia.
Ok, jeste čuli ljudi, želimo puno prijava. Mislim da ste svi, da vas ima puno koji su zaista već ušli u LIFE, u logiku LIFE-a, u projekte u ideju, prioritete, teme, tako da očekujemo ove godine veliki broj prijava, bez obzira na ove izmjene. Mislim da ćete ih brzo savladati. Mislim da nam odgovara i tajming, znači nije kraj ljeta, nego je jesen i to debela jesen. Mi smo tu za vas da evo, pitajte nas što možemo pomoći, da ćemo sve od sebe. Imamo podršku fonda. Evo, mislim da su nam dobre šanse za ovu godinu. Svakako oni koji su već prijavljivali projekte, a nisu dobili, pozivamo da ponovno prijave, da se ne obeshrabre, da prijave ponovno, da samo dorade malo što još treba, uzmu u obzir nove momente, nove situacije, nove stvari. Znači uvijek treba biti u korak sa situacijom koja se dešava. LIFE je izvrstan projekt. Fleksibilnost, usmjerenost na ciljeve, na rezultate je stvarno, evo, možda se čini zahtjevno za prijaviti, ali kada se krene s projektom, kada se u provedbi, mislim da je to jedna, evo, stvarno dobra priča i dobar program koji ima kontinuitet, dugi niz godina i koji je stvarno usmjeren na bolje poboljšanje stanja u zaštiti okoliša, prirode i klime. Ok.
Evo, ja bih samo napomenula, za sva ostala pitanja, naravno uvijek stojimo na raspolaganju i naravno da ćemo dostaviti odgovore. Evo, to je s moje strane. Ja zahvaljujem naravno Angelu, Nikolini i Vlatki.
Dolazimo do kraja. Angelo, thank you again. Thank you very much for joining us today and being a main star. We are very proud to have you today. Hvala svima koji su bili s nama. Drago nam je da je ovo ogroman interes. Žao nam je da kroz niti ove online aplikacije nismo imali dovoljno prostora za primiti vas sve, ali ovo ćemo pustiti i online, moći ćete pogledati. I evo, stojimo tu za vas, pitajte nas, krenite odmah sa prijavama i čujemo se i vidimo se. Angelo.
Thanks to everyone and hvala, and see you hopefully next time in real in front of a good beer.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye. Take care to everyone.
Bye.